Hello, I'm Bryan Hubbard, and welcome to the latest podcast. Bit of a special one this time round because I want to spend a bit of time talking about our Get Well show, which happens at London's Olympia, February the 21st to the 23rd. Now, why are we doing a show when we're a magazine publisher? Well, we've been researching medicine and health for about 30 years now. I know it's hard to believe I look so young, but we have been. And in all that time, we keep coming across therapy after therapy that has helped thousands of people. And we thought, well, it's high time we really brought all this together into a show so you could meet all these lovely people yourself, discuss your particular issues, and see if you trust them, like them, and maybe you could continue working with them yourselves. But, we needed a show in order to do that, so hence the Get Well show. And the idea is we're going to do this every year at Olympia, ideally so, and then we're going to take it to America. So all you Americans, hold on. We're planning a show next year in Los Angeles. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about the show, because what we've done, we've interviewed a few of the keynote speakers, and I'd like to just introduce those people to you in turn. The show has about 90 exhibitors and 40 or so speakers, and we've been catching up with a few of them in the past few weeks. One of the first to drop into our offices was Dr. Rob Verkerk, who's the head of the Alliance for Natural Health. And Rob's been an advocate and a lobbyist for natural health and protecting our natural health concerns for some years now. And Rob's he's a bit one of my heroes, to be honest with you. And so I was very keen to catch up with Rob to hear what he's going to say. He's speaking twice. He's going to be speaking on Friday the 21st and on Sunday the 23rd. On the first time round about Alzheimer's and diabetes, as well as IBS and other gut issues. Here's what Rob has to say about what he's going to be talking about. Hi, I'm Bryan Hubbard. I'm with the Get Well show, which happens at London's Olympia in February. We're going to have a fantastic array of speakers and exhibitors. And I'm delighted to say that I have one of them here today, Rob Verkerk. He doesn't know this, but he's about one of my favourite guys. I think he's genuinely one of the heroes of the last decade.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say.
Rob is championing freedom of treatment, of therapy, in a scientific way. He's taking on the administrators scientifically and trying to establish and keep our health freedoms. And so he's a remarkable man. And it would be your pleasure to come along to the show to hear this guy, because he's so knowledgeable. He has so much expertise. He's got so much science behind him. You guys are going to be bowled over by what he's going to talk about. Rob's going to talk twice at the show. He's going to talk about the gut-brain connection, which is probably the single most important factor in health today. And you're going to talk about low carbs. I mean, two absolute key issues. Rob, tell us more.
Key issues, but also controversial issues. Mm-hmm. So I want to deal with the gut-brain connection, really to give people steps how to hone this connection. We're born with it. We don't treat it with great respect. If you look at everyone knows about fight and flight response, but they don't know about rest and digest. So we get this disturbance of the autonomic nervous system, the part of the nervous system that we can't control. Right. And a lot of people are eating on the hoof. They're asking their gut to do things that it's not intended to do. Right. That's why in a lot of traditional societies you see people sitting around tables, relaxing while they're eating, so that the parasympathetic system can be in action so they can digest food. Now, not only are we doing that, we are often have gut permeability issues, and there are, if we don't look after this connection, our food is really the most intimate way in which we experience the external environment.
So what impact does this have on the brain health?
Essentially, we can't extract the nutrients out of our food. We cannot generate the neurotransmitters that we need to create the neurotransmitter balance that we need. Right. It's also difficult to do that in certain diets. A lot of vegans who may have disturbances in terms of their methionine cycle, the key amino acid that is essential to be able to produce the, say, the tryptophan and the dopamine and the serotonin that we need.
This is the science, guys. This is the science.
So you know, you need to get all the nutrients out of your diet. And as you get older, your ability to assimilate nutrients also declines. So you need to make up for that. So it's really how we can understand what particular markers we need to get sorted in order to really make the most of this incredibly important
And we see
connection.
obviously cognitive mental decline as we age, memory loss, sharpness, all these things. And you think this could well be
Most of it is preventable.
Right.
Most of it is preventable. But if you don't know what you need to do, and this idea that you can just consume what the government tells us to eat, low-fat diets are one of the problems that we have here. So we need to get healthy brain fats into our diet. We need to sort out gut permeability. We need to establish vagal tone, the key autonomic nerve, 10th cranial nerve, that actually is a direct connection between our brain and our gut. So there's stuff that we need to do, and there's stuff that we need to learn to
We've been told for 30 years, low-fat diet's the way to go. Completely wrong as you get older in particular. Let's turn quickly to your second talk, low carbs.
So, of course, a lot of people have seen huge positive responses in terms of weight loss, dealing with obesity, getting rid of brain fog by going low carb. You'll now know that the system has jumped in there with some rather dodgy science very often to suggest that, oh no, low carb can be dangerous. The reality is that there is no absolute firm definition around what low carb is, but the bottom line is that the over-reliance on processed carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates, is causing a massive problem in society. Now, as soon as you reduce the amount of those carbs, you have to replace it with something. We call it substitution. And of course, we shouldn't be replacing it just with protein, because there can be problems in terms of putting our kidneys under too much pressure, putting too much protein in. But we have to replace it with fats. Now, what kind of fats do you replace it with? So really what we want to introduce here is this idea of low carb as an evolutionary eating plan to understand the kind of carbs that we need to be consuming, as well as how we prepare those in the kitchen or when we're out and about, what ones we select. Generally speaking, you won't find them in the garage forecourts. Because that's where many of the problems lie. But also what kind of fats we consume. And many of the problems relate really to industrial farming and food processing foods. I mean, these are where the problems are. So we can go back to an evolutionary eating plan, get all the benefits of low carb in terms of reducing our risk massively to type 2 diabetes, reducing our risk to type 3 diabetes, otherwise known as Alzheimer's disease. They're very, very closely related, linked to inflammation, linked to these kind of diets, and also, restricting the number of times in a day that we're feeding ourselves. Food frequency is a major issue.
And if people are some way down this path already, can they take steps back by improving their diet?
Yeah, look, it's if you've gone into full-blown type 2 diabetes where you're starting to see major issues, it can be difficult. But certainly caught at an early stage, particularly at a sort of pre-diabetes stage, it is absolutely reversible. There are more and more studies now showing how this can be done. But a combination of intermittent fasting, caloric restriction, low carb, replacement with healthy fats, that's really part of the solution.
Okay, so if you have early stage diabetes, worried about Alzheimer's, cognitive issues, general brain fog, any other issues?
Low energy.
Low energy.
I mean, low energy is not a natural state. As soon as our mitochondrial function starts declining, we need to do something about it. And that's also linked directly with gut function, how you improve both together.
And digestion itself, of course. I mean, gut itself as a digestive problem. So, any of you are concerned about any of these things, you've got to be at the Get Well show in February. It makes sense. February the 21st through to the 23rd. Rob's going to be speaking twice during the show. You've got to be there, guys, obviously. Thanks for that, Rob. That's just a flavour of what Rob will be talking about. So catch him on Friday and on Sunday. Another of my heroes who dropped in to see us the other week was Meleni Aldridge, who also works very closely with Rob at the Alliance for Natural Health. Meleni's quite an interesting person in her own right. She has her own health protocols and things she does when she's not campaigning. And she's going to be talking about autoimmune problems, MS, and all sorts of other conditions related to the immune system. So catch up what she has to say about her talk. Hi, I'm Bryan Hubbard from the Get Well show, which happens in February at London's Olympia. It's going to be a panoply of fantastic speakers, practitioners, therapists, people who know stuff that so many don't. And we're very lucky to have one of the great speakers here today, Meleni Aldridge, Executive Coordinator of the Alliance for Natural Health. Meleni, welcome.
Bryan, hi. Thanks very much.
No, I mean, you're a campaigner. You're doing so much for health freedom, none of which you'll be talking about at the show, because you're going to be talking about autoimmune disease and the thyroid.
Absolutely.
In two separate talks, I know. But what's the connection, and why are you so interested in those subjects?
So I'm at the show. I'm talking with my practitioner hat on.
Right.
I've been a practitioner for scarily over 30 years now.
Wow.
And
started when she was just 34. She started. Yeah.
Much of my much of my therapy journey has been informed by my own experiences of autoimmune disease and thyroid disease as well.
Okay.
So I'm going to be talking about both of those topics, and actually about what you can do to get well, basically. Fits perfectly with the show.
Now, it's a prevalent problem, isn't it?
It is.
And is it that, are there a lot of people who have it and don't know they have it, for example?
I think in our society we are not taught really how to understand our bodies. And when the body's raising a red flag, we tend to not know that. And so we are living in basically an epidemic these days of thyroid problems, and there's a really good reason for that. And so one of the things that I want to talk about is how better to understand why your body might be raising the red flag and what you can do about it.
Wow.
And be looking from a standpoint of just how powerful making changes with our nutrition, with our movement, and with the way we rest, and how we deal with stress in our lives. And these things, you know, are incredibly powerful. And when you give the body what it needs, it's pretty miraculous in terms of the amount of the healing that you can achieve.
So people who are sort of feeling tired all the time, don't have the energy, or even a joy of life, all these could be symptoms of this problem.
Absolutely. The thyroid is so much more than just the master controller of our endocrine system, our hormonal system.
Wow.
If you think about the fact that the energy factories in our cells, the mitochondria, all have thyroid receptors, you understand why thyroid is so intimately linked to energy levels. And obviously energy is also to do with our brains and our thought processes and whether we get foggy in the afternoon. And you leave that for a long enough period of time, and then you start going into immune crisis because there's now not enough energy in the body to start fueling the immune system. And one step after another, you know, it takes you more down an autoimmune route. And it's not that difficult when you understand the messages and the signposting in the body to start creating health instead of going down another pathway.
Fantastic. And so anyone who's feeling tired all the time, no lust for life, foggy brain, you name it, you've got to hear Mel speak. She's speaking Friday and Saturday, I believe. We've cunningly split Mel up, so you have to come on both days.
You've got to come twice.
And it's going to be at London's Olympia. 21st of February it starts through to the 23rd of February. It's called Get Well Show, and you can get your tickets. See Mel, you got to see Mel at Get Well Solutions, getwell.solutions/show. I'm Bryan Hubbard, and I look forward to meeting you there. Thanks for that, Meleni. I know it's going to be a really fascinating talk, and I can't wait to hear it myself. Another one of our heroes who we caught up with in the last week or so is Dr. Sarah Myhill. Now, Sarah is an extraordinary person because she's not only a GP, but she's a very alternative one, and her work has caught the attention of the GMC on a few occasions, and it's need to say Sarah's come out the winner each time. Really looking forward to meeting Sarah at the show. She's speaking a couple of times for us. Again, she's speaking on Friday about fatigue and on Saturday as well. So, I'm really looking forward to that. But Lynne McTaggart, who's my partner on the show, was caught up with Sarah just the other week, and here's what she had to say.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lynne McTaggart. I'm author of What Doctors Don't Tell You and Get Well magazines, and also one of the founders of the Get Well show, which is going to be at Olympia, February 21st to 23rd of 2020. And I am here with one of the people who are going to be speaking at the event, the amazing Dr. Sarah Myhill, who is an incredible integrative specialist, a medically trained doctor. And I'd love for you to tell people about yourself, Sarah, and why you're a little bit different.
I'm a conventionally trained doctor. I started practicing in NHS medicine in 1981, and in the year 2000, I went into independent general practice. And the reason I went into independent general practice is because within the NHS, I did not have the clinical freedoms I needed to be a good doctor. And the problem with conventional medicine has to do with drugs and symptom suppression. Because if you go to your GP with a headache, you'll get a symptom suppressing drug. And that is how blood pressure, high cholesterol, and so on is treated. So I'm interested in the root causes of illness. I want to know what people eat, how they live, which supplements they're taking, if they've been poisoned by anything, because that is at the root cause of all disease. And by working out those root causes, you can then work out why they've got the problem and how you can fix it with simple, nutritional, safe, demonstrably, scientifically proven interventions.
Fantastic. And one of the areas that you've really concentrated on is chronic fatigue. Now, why are you so passionate about that?
Chronic fatigue syndrome and ME are the worst treated conditions in the whole of Western medicine. Why? For the very same reason that the root causes of this condition are not looked for and addressed. Instead, patients get treated as if they're hypochondriacs or if they're psychiatric cases and told it's all in the mind, and that actually makes them worse. And in treating patients with chronic fatigue syndrome, there are four big players with respect to energy delivery mechanisms. And an analogy that I use all the time is the car analogy. And to get well from this illness, you need to have the right fuel in the tank. If I put petrol in my diesel car, it's just not going to go. And that fuel in the tank is all about diet and gut function. And I probably talk about that more than all other subjects put together. So important. You then have to have what I call the mitochondrial engine. And this is the area where I've done some original research to demonstrate that mitochondria are centrally important in patients with chronic fatigue syndrome. And guess what? They go slow. And why do they go slow? For reasons that we can all address, because of nutritional deficiencies and because they are blocked by something which might be toxic stress from the outside world, poisons, or toxic stress from the inside world. And again, it's all stuff that can be easily fixed oneself. And then we have what I call the thyroid accelerator pedal. And guess what? If your car is running at 5 miles an hour, and your thyroid gland is set low, you're not going to achieve. And then finally, we have the adrenal gearbox, and that allows us to gear up to demand in response to stress. And by addressing those four issues, you can greatly improve energy delivery at the cellular level and transform the lives of patients with chronic fatigue syndrome.
And just to let people understand what mitochondria is, which has been a real signature part of your work, that's the power pack of the cells, right? That's what
correct,
gives, that's what gives the cells their oomph.
Correct, that's the engine. And actually mitochondria are implicated in almost any pathology you care to mention, from cancer, dementia, heart disease. So by fixing your mitochondria, you're going to protect yourself from getting those diseases later on in life.
Now, people come to listen to you speak at the Get Well show. What do you think is going to be the main takeaway that they get? What gain from listening to you if they have chronic fatigue?
The most important take-home message, if you like, is that I can give you the rules of the game and the tools of the trade so that you can fix yourself. And that is important because we do not have the doctors, and we have lots of good nutritional therapists, but we still do not have sufficient in order to help those people. So what people have to get their heads around is they have to do it themselves. They have to work it out for themselves from first principles. And that's why I've written the books, because within the books, I detail, what the symptoms are, how to know from the symptoms what mechanisms are going wrong, and from those mechanisms, as I say, the tools that you need to fix yourself. And these tools are simple, straightforward tools that we all have access to. So I hope this will be an empowering event to allow people to take control of their disease.
Wonderful. And I really encourage anybody who has chronic fatigue or ME, or who has a loved one with one of those conditions, come see Sarah. You'll have a chance to talk to her in person, an amazing chance. She'll be there on Friday and Saturday, and she'll be speaking about this. And you can also get hold of her books, which have incredible things about healing yourself. So thank you, Sarah, and we look forward to seeing you at the Get Well show.
It will be fun. I look forward to that very much indeed.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sarah. An absolute must-hear talk. Again, Sarah's talking on Friday and Saturday. Now, another speaker I was actually fascinated by is Sandy Edwards. Now, she came to my attention last year because she put together the biggest ever research program into spiritual healing, usually in a hospital setting. She works in a hospital, and she got some, I think, over £200,000 of lottery funding to fund this research. And absolutely fascinating person. Sandy says that everyone can do spiritual healing. I'm sure not all of us can do it as well as she can, but listen to what she has to say when I interviewed her the other week.
Hello, I'm Bryan Hubbard. I'm helping to organise the Get Well show, which is happening at London's Olympia, February the 21st to the 23rd, imminently this year. And we've got over 40 speakers over the 3 days. And one of the most intriguing was a lady who's online with me now called Sandy Edwards. And I was particularly intrigued, Sandy, because our paths first crossed about a year ago when I came across this amazing study that you'd undertaken into spiritual healing and its effects. And you were an amazing woman who raised, I think, over £200,000 on the national lottery to get all this done, which I thought was quite amazing. And you've also written an amazing book called Healing in a Hospital, because that is where you do your work. So there's a lot of ground to cover in these few minutes, Sandy, but let's start from the beginning. So how did you become a spiritual healer?
Well, I had no sign of a natural healing ability, but I decided I must become a spiritual healer.
Okay.
So I was immediately pointed to a particular organisation called the Healing Trust nowadays,
Right.
that has fabulous training standards. You can't get better. And so I trained with them. And within 10 years, magically, I instigated this clinical research trial, which, as you say, was funded by the National Lottery to the tune of £205,000.
Yeah.
And the research itself was conducted by one of the cream universities of the world, University of Birmingham, which is a Russell Group university.
Right.
That's equivalent to the Ivy League in the States.
Right.
So you can't get better than this. And it's the largest medical trial of spiritual healing in the world. This was 200 long-term ill people, all NHS patients.
Right.
And the story how it came about is as amazing as the results are. The results are wonderful too.
Yeah.
So, yes, it is a big story.
It is a big, yeah. I mean, so just take that in chunks a little bit there. And you said you spent 10 years training. Does it?
No. 2 years training.
Okay.
And then from the moment of beginning training to the moment of beginning this research was 10 years. So within 10 years of starting training, I instigated the research trial.
Right.
And actually, I hadn't noticed the similarity. It took another 10 years from beginning that research application to its culmination of being published in medical journals.
Wow.
So you've got to have staying power for this kind of...
You do, and you do, obviously, and it pays off, which is remarkable. But after you had your initial training in how to do this work, you were very quickly involved in a hospital, weren't you?
Quite quickly, really, considering, but it was always in my mind, this needs to be in the NHS.
Right.
And I did open a voluntary healing group in Walsall, Midlands.
Right.
Again, with a little lottery grant that I managed to achieve. And that still offers healing to the public. But there are lots of those kind of groups all over the country.
Right.
And the more the better. But as it turns out, we discovered from the research trial and from the patients that came to the hospital that people who are hospital patients don't want to go to a voluntary healing group. They want to have healing at the hospital or at the doctor's surgery, where they feel safe that the therapy and the therapist has been cleared by the powers that be, by the medical profession. So, but the reason I became involved in the hospital work was because of the patients who came to our voluntary healing group. I've always been a volunteer healer, by the way. 5 years after we opened in 2000, a lady told me that her consultant had sent her, and he'd sent other people before, and he was pleased with the results. So I found out who that was and wrote to him. That was Dr. Sukhdev Singh at Good Hope Hospital in Birmingham, and suggested that I give healing as a volunteer to his patients at the hospital. Right. So that was how it first came about. Right. And soon after I began at the hospital, well, 2 weeks after I started, I asked if I could create an audit of what these people were saying. Just one 20-minute healing session. That's all it takes to give a healing session. Right. And after just 20 minutes, people were reporting really unusual things for the doctor to hear with his own ears and see with his own eyes. Right. And so I thought, all of these lovely things that are being said are disappearing into the ether. Right. So I needed to create an audit, and it was on the strength of that we were able to get the lottery grant as well, because we had to give evidence that people were benefiting from this therapy and that they wanted to have this, more of this.
But now, I know the results were way beyond placebo. And I know that's often an attack on spiritual healing and many other modalities. It's just placebo, and it's way beyond that. But how far does it actually go? I mean, have you got so far as you've fully healed somebody, for example, or is it just helped relieve symptoms and made the medical treatment easier, or how far does it go?
All of the above.
Right.
And the one of the stories in my book about one of the people on the research trial, he had 5 healing sessions on the research trial. As it happened, they were with me. And after the research trial, he had another 5. He had ulcerative colitis, for which there is no cure, no medical cure. But as a result of coincidences, he had to have an investigation and discovered that he had no longer got ulcerative colitis. Absolutely no sign of it in his body. So yes, it is wow. And there was another one of Dr. Singh's patients who had been troubled for many years, and in 20 minutes everything stopped and he never had a problem again. 20 minutes. Say half an hour to say hello and goodbye.
So this is a 20-minute session. There's no touching of the body, is there? You're just putting hands over the body. Is that right?
We usually are trained to touch on the shoulders to begin, and then there's a touch on the feet. But we don't have to do that. But I like to use touch, but the most touch we do is only on the joints of the arms and legs.
Just to start,
And people stay fully clothed. They can wear their coat and hat if they want, their shoes, anything. It's absolutely fine.
Now, does this work because you're super gifted? Or do you think...
that would be lovely.
Or can anyone learn to do this, do you think?
If I can do it, anybody can do it.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's the same as cooking or learning a language. Some people are better at it naturally.
Right.
The rest of us, like me, have to make a big effort. But from the very beginning of training, people that I was practicing on did comment that they were able to notice the difference during the healing session and afterwards. So something in that training ignited it.
And I suppose go on.
I was just going to say, and I'm proof that if anybody can do this, if they're passionate and determined.
Well, you certainly are determined, because you all those years getting the study done and all the rest of it. I mean, you have been determined. But,
yes, and it has been a joy. It's been a real joy, all of it.
But I mean, you're obviously a very intelligent woman, Sandy, and I'm sure the question has popped in your own mind: what the heck's going on? Do you have a theory as to why this works?
I've got a number of ideas that keep me on track to try not to question it, because even partway through a healing session I can think, how can this possibly help somebody? But it does, and it has done over and over, and not just for me, of course, for every healer. And there are so many people who are natural healers and they don't realise it. Probably everybody who's been drawn into the medical profession, for instance, and people who are in caring professions of any sort. So or looking after loved ones as a carer. So there are lots of people who are natural healers who don't realise it. And it's if you're in a caring job, it's good to at least have done the very first course of healing, so that you learn how to retain the integrity of your own energy whilst at the same time helping others, because it can be very draining if we don't do that.
I'm sure. Listen, we've just had a few minutes with you, Sandy. We've scratched the surface only. But I mean, I think everyone's got to come to hear you talk. I mean, you're going to be at the show 3 days. Are you going to have a stand there?
Yes.
So you'll be meeting and greeting and all the rest?
Yes. Number 18.
Stand 18. You're going to be demonstrating on the stand, but you're talking as well. And on Sunday.
Sunday afternoon.
So look, I mean, you're absolutely fabulous, Sandy, and you were top of my list of the people I wanted to come and speak. So I'm so blessed that you said yes.
Oh, thank you.
You're doing wonderful, wonderful work. So look, everybody, it's the Get Well show, as I say. It's 21st to the 23rd of February at London's Olympia, and Sandy and 39 other speakers will be there. And it's going to be an amazing showcase of alternative, interesting, innovative, breakthrough therapies that you really do want to hear about. So be there. And you can buy your tickets at getwell.solutions/show to buy your tickets beforehand. Sandy, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person on February the 21st.
Thank you.
And maybe you could do a bit of healing for me whilst you're there. So
yes,
love to. Love it. Thanks, Sandy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. It was really interesting. And Sandy will be speaking on Sunday, February the 23rd. Now, the next speaker, again, he was interviewed by Lynne a couple of weeks back, and that's Damien Downing. Now, Damien is going to be speaking on the Saturday, and I can't wait to hear, because Damien is a guy who's been around for about as long as we have, which is saying an awful lot, I know. And but Damien's going to be on the stage on the Saturday, as I say, and we're really excited to hear what he's going to say on the day. But Lynne caught up with him the other day, just say, well, what are you going to be talking about? This alone is a fascinating conversation. Hope you enjoy it.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lynne McTaggart, and I am so excited to tell you about our Get Well show, which is going to be held at Olympia, February 21st to 23rd. It is the first show of its kind to offer actual therapists in so many areas, doctors, healers, therapists of all varieties, to help you with any kind of chronic condition you have. And we're going to feature 41 different therapists doing all kinds of things. And one of our stars is Dr. Damien Downing, who I have here. Now, Dr. Downing is probably the preeminent British specialist in ecological medicine. He's the former editor of the Journal of Nutritional and Environmental Medicine. He's the president of the British Society for Ecological Medicine, and he is really, as I say, a real star in this field, which is the British equivalent to functional medicine. So he is here today with me to talk about, give you a little glimpse of what he's going to talk about, which has to do with an amazing discovery and use he's made of phospholipids. So hi, Dr. Downing. Lovely to see
Lynne.
you.
Hi.
So tell us a little bit about this. This has become a real interest of yours.
Yeah, it has. I mean, for me, it's become, like the missing link, the bit that we were waiting for all this time. Phospholipids, let's assume, phospholipids are what your cells are made of, right? If we cut you right down to Olympic athlete physique, so you've got no storage fat at all, you're still going to be about 20% fat and oil by weight. And that's pretty much it all in the membranes of your cells, the outer wall of your cell, and all the internal structures in it, okay? And those are lined up in these membranes and like a forest of pine trees or whatever, they're all parallel molecules. And they need to be in exactly the right composition in order for your cells to work. They used to call it solid state signaling, the messages that go from one side of the cell, from outside the cell membrane to inside. Right, but it's not really solid. It's a fine balance between solid and fluid. And when you think about it, that's life. That's what life is the difference between outside the cell and inside the cell, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the thing that has become more and more important these days is the pollution that we're all exposed to, the heavy metals, you remember lead in petrol, and all the other metals that are everywhere in our lives these days, the pesticides, the petrochemicals, so on and so forth, and even the electromagnetic pollution, because that affects the cell membranes and how they function, and the channels through the membrane. And 90-something% of these toxins that we're exposed to, they're fat soluble. So when a database thing says, oh, this is cleared from the system in 72 hours or something like that, sure, it's out of the blood in that time, but it ends up in what we call the fatty compartment of the body, or the lipid compartment. Now, part of that is the storage fat, so it's inside fat cells, but part of it also is in the cell membranes. That's really not a good place to store your toxins.
So what effect does it have on the body?
Well, endless effects, really. I mean, it affects in so many ways. Firstly, it disrupts the functioning of the cell membranes like that, and mean that, cells overreact or don't react when they need to. Secondly, it just gets in the way of cell functioning, clogs up the biochemical pathways. Thirdly, it can have an effect on the DNA. It can actually interfere with your genes being switched on and making the proteins that you need for all your functions.
So, phospholipids, so they're part of your cells, but you've also been using and you've been intrigued by the use of this to detox. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, because you won't get access into the fatty, oily parts of the body, including the membrane, just using water-soluble stuff, because effectively the body is divided into lipid compartment and aqueous compartment. And if all your drugs and your chemicals and stuff are in the aqueous compartment, they do nothing to the lipid compartment. So using things like phosphatidylcholine, which is basically it's fats and oils in the form in which they need to be incorporated into the membranes, you can get access in not just into the membrane, but right through the membrane and into the cell. So using these, you can get stuff out of the cell into the system, and because the body is set up for this or perfectly well, if you give it the chance, you can then get excretion through the liver, the bile, where it's all supposed to go, out into the out of the body.
And this is done by taking it by mouth or intravenously, or how?
There's three ways you can do it. You can do it by mouth, which is, practical for people to do themselves. You can do it but which is relatively slow and so forth. You can do it with intravenous treatments, which is fast and effective, but it's really quite expensive. Or with medical supervision, you can do it with a small enema type thing.
So, what's the outcome of this? It's a major detox system, is it?
Well, it is. You're doing several things when you do this. Number one, yes, you are detoxing. Sometimes there's a threshold. You have to push relatively hard in order to get the detox process working. So for instance, if we're treating really sick patients, we'd often give them a run of 3 or 4 intravenous treatments to begin with, and after the third or fourth, they start getting some cramping and churning the abdomen. And then they have an almighty clear out of the bowel, and then we say, right, the liver bile excretion system is up and running again. So now we can use it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So who should come listen to your talk? And what are they going to take away?
Well, I think anybody who's alive in the 21st century, really. But certainly anybody who has symptoms. The other things, by the way, that we do, what you can achieve with the treatment are it has an inflammatory effect. Even if it's not detoxing something, it does have a damping down effect. Obviously with all of this stuff, prevention would have been better than cure.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping healthy with the right sort of oils and so forth is, an essential part of staying alive and living a long, healthy life.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's got to the stage that you are sick and you're burdened with toxins and so forth, then we want to do the detox. We want to settle down the inflammation if at all possible.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to remodel the cell membranes. And of course, this is particularly important with the nervous system because of the shape of a nerve cell. You've got a cell here with a long, long axon, which means that it's all surface. The surface to volume ratio is very high. And therefore nerve cells are particularly vulnerable to, these nutritional and toxic problems.
So this is the kind of information that people with pretty much any chronic condition can discover and find out whether or not detox of this kind of nature will be useful for them.
Yes, yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, if this is you and you're listening, Dr. Downing will be there. Dr. Damien Downing will be at our show speaking, and I really urge you to listen to him because what he has to say is really revolutionary. So have a look at our website, getwell.solutions. Find out about our speaker schedule and when Dr. Downing is going to be speaking. And don't forget, buy yourself a ticket because they're going really quickly. You can avoid the queues, get a certain discount, and get to see all of these fantastic therapies. So thank you so much, Dr. Downing, for sharing this with us.
My pleasure.
Thanks for that, Damien. Again, looking forward to that on the Sunday. Now, on the Saturday, we have a very interesting person speaking because most of the talks are from the therapists themselves, but we've got a few of people who themselves have overcome health problems. And one such person is Georgia Lennard, who will be speaking on Saturday. Now, Georgia suffered from an autoimmune problem called Hashimoto's disease, and she was finding the response from doctors and medicine was rather inadequate. In fact, they didn't really feel there was anything they could do for her except help her cope with the problem. Well, Georgia's a young lady who wanted to live a full and active life, so she did a lot of investigating herself, and so she's come up with quite a series of protocols that can help you get well if you are suffering from chronic fatigue or Hashimoto's or thyroid problems. And it's a must-hear talk, which is on the Saturday, but in the meantime, here's what she has to say about it.
Hi, I'm Bryan Hubbard, and I'm helping to organise the Get Well show, which happens at London's Olympia from February the 21st to the 23rd. It's going to be an extravaganza, a showcase of innovation, breakthrough, of all sorts of therapies which are proven to work on loads and loads of chronic health problems. And you've just got to be there because there's 41 speakers and over 90 exhibitors. And talking of speakers, we're very lucky to be talking today with one of them, the lovely Georgia Lennard, who will be talking on Saturday. So you've got to be there for that, at the very least. Georgia is an amazing young woman who's about to give birth to twins, but she promises she won't do it at the show. But what she will be doing is talking about her own personal health journey, and particularly from being a very active, fit, successful trainer. She still are, of course. She found herself flat out one day, had no energy, couldn't move, and didn't know what the heck had happened to her. So what had happened to you, Georgia?
Yes, so I actually had Hashimoto's,
Right.
which is the autoimmune form of thyroid disease. And actually, not many people know this, but up to 95% of people who have hypothyroidism have got Hashimoto's.
Wow. And is it a spectrum disorder? I mean, can you be slightly tired or right the way through to how you were? You're flat out. So could people have feeling tired, not sure why? Could that be?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
It sort of starts out like that and sort of builds.
Okay.
And so for me, I felt tired and sort of struggling for years, but I think I got used to that. That became my sort of normal.
Okay.
But then it developed into something where I actually couldn't function because I think I let it go that far where I thought, oh well, it's just this and it's because I'm a mum, or as we people tend to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, for you, and how did you discover it was a Hashimoto's?
So I went for testing. Actually, I went up to Harley Street and had a full comprehensive blood chemistry test. And I noticed that my immune markers were a bit off. They weren't looking right.
Okay.
I also noticed that I had some vitamin and mineral deficiencies that I shouldn't have had because I was actually taking those.
Right. Right.
Yeah, at the time. So that was really interesting. And I've seen that with a lot of clients who have Hashimoto's. Really interesting. And that kind of made me think, I need to check. So my thyroid markers came up on there as well. They looked okay. My T3 was a bit low, TSH was in range, and I think this is Hashimoto's, because I have all the thyroid symptoms, my immune system markers don't look right, and I then requested thyroid antibodies to be tested, and that's how.
But you're doing all this yourself, aren't you? You're driving all this.
Yes, I have to.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? You're your own medical detective and you're your own therapist.
Yeah, you have to be your own health advocate.
Because what is the conventional view of Hashimoto? Well, how would they treat it?
They don't.
They
don't. So your standard GP will actually say to you, as mine said to me, it's not treatable. Right. So they will only treat you if you become hypothyroid. So Hashimoto's is when your body attacks your own thyroid gland and you produce antibodies as a result.
Right.
And you can see that on a test. And after it gets attacked enough times, it damages the gland, and then you become hypothyroid. So then you have hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's.
Right.
But for me, I just had Hashimoto's.
Right.
So they won't treat it. They won't give you medication.
Until you're far.
Until it's
far worse.
until the gland is not functioning.
But I know also that you discovered that there were certain tests and markers that were essential for understanding Hashimoto's, which again, conventional therapies do not recognise. So do you want to tell us just a couple of those, or?
Yeah, sure. So the most important thing with autoimmune conditions and with thyroid disorders and Hashimoto's is finding out what the cause is. And so what I did is I did a few tests. So the first was the comprehensive blood chemistry. So nutrient deficiencies can really drive Hashimoto's. So the first thing was to sort that out. Obviously a full thyroid panel including antibodies. And then the other important tests were a gut health test, so to look at which strains of bacteria I actually have, if my gut wall is permeable or not. And then if you find that it is, you can then work to fix that. And lastly, a food sensitivity test, so to look at which foods are actually causing my body to produce antibodies. So to produce IgG antibodies, which are the same ones involved.
So where are you today? Would you say you still have Hashimoto's that you're managing, or would you say you've now reversed it? Where are you?
I'd say I'm in remission. You can't really ever sort of think that it's gone and it's never coming back and it's healed, and because you have the propensity to have it. But I would say I don't suffer with the symptoms anymore. I was obviously able to fall pregnant with twins and carry them, and I'm still very active, which is very different to how it was when I found out.
So who should come along to hear you talk on Saturday, and what are they going to hear? So anyone who feels they're tired more often than they should be, and maybe these are sort of early warning signs, aren't they? And right way through to people who know they have Hashimoto's and don't know what to do about it. So
yes, definitely. Yeah, the thing that's difficult with thyroid disease and Hashimoto's is there are so many symptoms that you can have. So I'll give you some of the most common ones.
Please do.
So tiredness, weight gain, feeling colder than most people, not being able to sleep very well, being constipated, having dry skin, brittle, thinning hair, the outside edges of the eyebrows thinning. So those kinds of symptoms, and also anxiety and depression as well. So people who are feeling like they're suffering and they're not in their best health, but they haven't been able to find out why or get a diagnosis, which is actually very difficult with thyroid disorders, should definitely come along. So I can help people to identify that. And then of course people who maybe are taking medication but they still have symptoms, which is often the case because you have to do more than just take medication. And anybody who knows that they are suffering with a thyroid or an autoimmune condition.
And you're going to give them the whole blueprint of what they can be doing, foods to eat, tests they should have, and vitamins they should be taking, etc., etc. I mean, which has worked for you.
Yeah, I really want to be able to give people actionable steps. So it won't be the same for every person, but I want to to give people a pathway of this is what you need to do now, and so they can actually feel empowered and not feel helpless. And
that's fantastic, Julia. You're radiant with health, if I may say so, and you're an absolute walking advert for your own therapy. So, look, I mean, George is speaking on Saturday, but as I say, we have 41 speakers over the 3 days. We just need the one ticket. It gives you access to all these speakers each day. And the thing to do is to go over to our website now, which is getwell.solutions/show. We can buy your tickets ahead of time. And why should you do that? Well, because it's cheaper. On the day, we're going to be charging you £25 a day access. And why not, with so many fantastic speakers? But if you go along to the website now, buy your tickets ahead of time, it's going to be a lot cheaper. I think it's currently 16 quid, saving exactly. Even Joe just said that. It's like absolute 10 quid saving. You've got to be there. You'll be able to meet the wonderful Georgia, who's going to have a stand there as well. And, and I think you'll be there. Are you 3 days or 2 days?
3 days, yeah. Be there all 3 days. So, any questions?
Come along. You've got to be there, guys. Thank you for watching, Georgia. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really look forward to your talk on the day. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, Georgia. It's very interesting, and I can't wait for her talk on Saturday. Now, someone else who popped in to see us quite recently was Simon Alebiosu. Now, Simon is an extraordinary human being. I mean, he's a kickboxing champion, to name one thing, and it's just ridiculous. He's almost as muscular as me. And Simon is... turned his attention to old crocs like me, in fact, and said, well, there's lots you can do. You don't have to be in the gym. There's loads of simple movements you can do to move your muscles, be flexible, and stay fit and well. And Simon is going to give us 2 demonstrations on Saturday where he's going to sort of outline some of these moves. He's going to show that. He's going to have a demonstration area as well as a conference area. 2 conference areas, 1 demonstration area. And Simon's going to be in the demonstration area on Saturday, the 22nd. We're going to show you some of these rather neat moves. Can't promise you're going to be as muscular as Simon at the end of it, but you're certainly going to be flexible. Here's what Simon had to say about it.
Hi, I'm Bryan Hubbard, and I'm helping to organise the Get Well show, which is happening at Olympia London from the 21st to the 23rd of February. It's a show you've got to be at because we've got loads of great speakers, 41 of them. And we're very lucky to have today one of them, who probably is the most handsome one and certainly the most ripped one, Simon Alebiosu. Now, Simon, you're a remarkable young man, apart from being incredibly handsome.
Thank you, Bryan. Too kind.
You are a jiu-jitsu champion from 2011, European.
Yep.
You've been and still are a personal trainer. I know you've had a lot of interest in nutrition, very little of which you'll be talking about at the show, because what you've suddenly got interested in, old people like me, as well as other people to help them move better, simple moves you don't need to do in the gym. So tell us, Simon, a bit more about it. How did you came to get interested in this area?
Yeah, so I originally started doing jiu-jitsu many years ago and competed. Prior to winning the European Championships, I was actually injured by a trainer, which led me to give up jiu-jitsu competitively and then just rethink my own training, but then also how I work with my own clients. And then that made me realize that actually so many people, including myself, live with chronic pain, whether it's on a subtle level or quite extreme level, but then also have so many different movement deficits in terms of their body just doesn't move as well as it should.
Right. Okay. So, and oftentimes those people compensate and they don't even realise their bodies are compensating.
Exactly.
And I suppose that can then lead to something more serious down the road as well.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, even if you're not aware of the problem, you're saying there are still simple movements you could introduce into your day which will help correct it anyway, even some simple things you could do if you're working in the office, walking around, whatever.
Single, there's a multitude of different exercises you can do. Simple ones depending on like where you are, how much equipment you have available, and sometimes you don't even need any equipment whatsoever. So it's just really, really easy things that'll help improve how your body works.
Right. Okay.
And also keep you injury free or improve your performance in sport, whatever activity.
But it could be for all ages. So.
Yeah, for all ages.
So if you're even quite old, maybe retired even, there are simple things you can bring into your day which don't require a gym, but very simple things, and they could make a massive difference to your general health, your mobility, limb strength, all these things that become more and more important as we get older too,
Yeah, definitely, and that's exactly what I'll be demonstrating at the exhibition.
Yeah, good point, Simon. And Simon, in fact, we'll be talking twice at the show on the Saturday. So that's going to be the 22nd of February. So you must make sure you're there for that to see Simon and all the other speakers we're having at the show. And the clever thing to do is to buy your tickets beforehand. You can go to getwell.solutions/show and get your tickets. And the reason why it's so smart to get your tickets early is because it's cheaper. On the day, the ticket price will be £25. Not cheap, but look, we're putting on 41 speakers, 80, 90 exhibitors. It's a massive show. Or you can get them special price right now. Go to the show. Go to the show website, check that out. You'll see the prices are much, much lower, and you get to meet Simon. So Simon, thank you so much for joining us today, and I really look forward to your talk on the Saturday and getting a few moves in myself.
I look forward to seeing you there.
Oh, I'll be there.
Now, I did mention that we are running the show together. That's Lynne McTaggart, my wife, and me. And no, it's not nepotism. Lynne's going to be speaking at the show, and she deserves to speak at the show. Lynne is a world-renowned speaker, and she packs the halls all over the planet, and no wonder. Her work about the power of 8 has empowered millions of people, and they're forming small healing groups to get well themselves, to help people who are in the center of these prayer groups, intention groups, as well as helping themselves. And that's the remarkable thing about this group work. And Lynne is going to be speaking about the power of 8 on Saturday, February the 22nd. You know, I mean, this is, of all the talks, you've got to hear Lynne. I mean, it is a phenomenon. We don't entirely understand what's going on ourselves. I mean, but we do this work, and for example, we've had even stage 4 cancer cases actually healing in 2 days. I mean, it is astonishing. We don't know why, we don't know what's going on, but it is happening, and Lynne will be speaking about it on the day, on the Saturday. But of course, as she works in the same office as me, it seemed rude not to actually interview her, so I did.
Hello, I'm Bryan Hubbard. I'm from the Get Well show, which is happening at London's Olympia from February the 21st to the 23rd. It's going to be an amazing event with loads of great speakers, therapists, people who have achieved great innovative breakthroughs for treating chronic health problems, and all of them have proven to work. So it's essential you come along to this show. And there are going to be about 90 exhibitors and 40 speakers, talking of which we have one here today, which is Lynne McTaggart. Now, Lynne, you'll talk to me about the power of 8. Now, almost like any other speaker, you're not a therapist, and you seem extremely democratic because everyone gets to do the healing. So tell us a bit more what you'll be talking about on the Saturday, the 22nd.
Sure. In the process of studying the power of intention, our thoughts to change things, I tried to scale that down for workshops, and I thought it was going to be a little mild feel-good effect, like having a facial or getting a back massage. But what ended up happening in these groups of 8 were extraordinary healings. We had people with cataracts who said they were 80% better. We had people who were scheduled for knee operations who would come out of the 10 minutes that they did this little intention in a group, and they'd be completely healed. And on and on and on. We had thousands and thousands of these kinds of stories. So since that time, I've been experimenting with groups of 8 and looking for what the secret sauce is. But the bottom line is they are healing mechanisms. They help people to heal their health in just about every way.
It's extraordinary, Lynne. And I mean, it's way beyond anything like a placebo, which I'm sure many of the critics would say it is, because you're seeing physical changes, aren't you?
Well, we're seeing complete physical changes. We're seeing people who are even skeptical, who have back pain, say, and they're put in a group and then they're healed. Or one woman with a genetic liver problem who went along to one little Power of 8 group and was completely healed of this condition. In fact, 2 of her consultants signed her off and said, you don't need any more treatment. And, you know, this has happened so many times. It's beyond placebo because it happens with people who don't believe it as well. And it also happens with other members of the group, some of the people who are doing the sending. So I didn't believe it, Bryan, at the very beginning. You know, I had to study it from every possible angle to try to figure out what was going on here.
Yeah. And your sort of unique contribution to this conversation, if you will, is the idea of the group effect, and which is quite unusual. I mean, you see this one-to-one stuff with other people, but the idea of the group does seem to be unique to you. And is there anything special about 8?
No. 8, as you know, we were talking about how to incorporate some of the things I was discovering in large group intention with the intention experiments, how to scale that down to a workshop. And I was kicking it around with you one day, you might remember around 2008, and I said, no, I don't know, maybe I'll put them in a group of 8 or so and have them send healing to each other. And you said, I love it, the power of 8.
There you are.
So it wasn't, he's a good headline writer, but it wasn't deliberate, and it doesn't require 8. What it requires is a group. It'll work with 5, it'll work with 12. I think it gets a little unwieldy beyond that. But the point is that group effect, and there are many, many reasons for that.
Okay. And also, Lynne, I mean, it isn't just the person being healed, is it? There's a magnifying effect for everyone involved in that process.
Well, I think that was the most extraordinary thing of all. I started noticing with the intention experiments, and I started documenting them, and also the Power of 8 groups, to find that the senders were getting healed as much as the receivers. And I started looking at the different things that go on, and I think one of the big pieces of it is altruism. When I started studying the science of altruism, it's a bulletproof vest for people. People who do things for other people, in any regard, live longer, happier, healthier lives.
It's so interesting, Lynne, and I think you have stumbled on something very profound, which has an incredible impact for all of us, I think. Look, Lynne, you're going to be with us for the 3 days, I think, aren't you? We've actually given Lynne a stand. And so you're going to be there for the 3 days, selling your new book, The Power of 8, but you're going to be speaking on Saturday morning. So look, you've got to come along to this show. Lynne is one of about 40 speakers we have, and it's word to the wise, get your tickets now, because the on-the-day price is going to be £25. It's not going to be cheap, but then we're offering you 40 speakers and 90 exhibitors. But now, pre-booking, we're talking about £16 for a day visit. That's all it is. So look, get along now to the Get Well site and get your tickets. It's getwell.solutions/show. Buy your tickets. You'll meet Lynne on the Saturday. You'll meet her throughout the 3 days. And we very much look forward to welcoming you to the Get Well show. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much, Lynne. It's so fascinating. And here the talk itself is even more fascinating. Lynne speaking on the Saturday. I hope that just gives you a bit of a flavour about the Get Well show. There are so many other speakers, we couldn't catch up with everybody, but there's just a few of them we like, and we like them all. And there are over 40 to be speaking across those 3 days. And as I say, there are 90 exhibitors as well. You've got to come to this show. It's an absolute must. It's February the 21st to the 23rd. And, a word to the wise, buy your ticket beforehand. It's going to be a lot cheaper. And you can do that by going to our website. that's getwell.solutions/show. Getwell.solutions/show. I'm Bryan Hubbard. I'll be at the show throughout. I'm really looking forward to meeting you and maybe even buying you a cup of coffee. Until then, stay well, and I'll see you at the show.